Don't stop. Keep it going for your next comic, Geraldine Manser.
Hi, thanks for coming out. I'm just going to roll my variety of jokes one after the other. Hope that's okay. So there was a true story. In the 1800s, they invented the athletic cup for men to protect them in sports. 100 years later, they invented the helmet, which goes to prove that man finally realized his brains are important too. A husband was interviewing for a job, and the interviewer asked him, "What is your job now?" He says, "Well, I'm my wife's sexual advisor." "So you want to explain that?" He said, "Sure." He says, "My wife said, anytime I need your fucking advice, I'll ask you." There was a little old lady that got arrested for stealing a can of peaches. And she's before the judge, and the judge said, "I'm going to have to give you a sentence of how many peaches were in the can that amount of days." "So how many peaches were in the can?" She said, 6. "I have to give you 6 days in jail." So she's slowly walking towards the door to the jail, and the husband says, "But wait, she stole a can of peas too." Elderly couple would go out for their anniversary every year, and all the woman wanted was to go on a helicopter ride. The husband always said, "No, sorry, $50 is $50, can't afford it." So for 10 years they're doing this, and he always tells her no. So finally she's 84, he's 85, and the pilot's hearing this again, and he said, "Listen, don't worry about it, I'll take you free. If you promise not to make a sound, not to talk, not to argue, just go up and enjoy the ride. If you make a sound, then you have to pay the $50. So they agreed, they got on the helicopter. And the helicopter pilot is doing all these loop-de-loops and figure eights, and he turns the helicopter almost upside down, and they land. And he goes over to the wife, he says, "You know, I'm really impressed. I can't believe that you were able to do that. Was it difficult for you?" She says, "Oh yeah, it was very difficult, especially when my husband fell out, but $50 is $50. There's a lawyer, and he's waiting on one of those long lines on Black Friday, and he feels someone massaging his shoulders. He turns himself around, and he says, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm a chiropractor. I'm just trying to pass the time and practice." He said, "Well, I'm a lawyer. You don't see me screwing the guy in front of me, do you?" So in the gay community, 90% of the gays are born that way, but the other 10% get sucked into it. So there was a drunk on a park bench, and he's out cold. And a couple of gays pass by, and they look at him and say, "You know, we could take advantage of him. He won't even know." They say, "Okay." So they take advantage of him, and they put $5 in his shirt pocket. And he wakes up, and he goes, "Oh, $5. He goes to the liquor store and buys a bottle of wine. So he passes out again on the park bench, and later on that evening, the gays come back, and they said, "Oh, he's there again. Let's take advantage of him." So they do. This time they feel a little guilty. They said, "Let's leave him $10 this time." So they put $10 in his pocket. He wakes up again. He says, "Oh, $10. He goes back to the liquor store to buy another bottle of wine. And he says to the clerk, "Let me buy the best bottle of wine you have for $10. She says, "Well, I gave you the best bottle of wine yesterday for $5. He said, "Yeah, but that makes my ass hurt." So this guy wants to go to buy a parrot in a pet store. And the only parrot available is a parrot that has no legs. And the only way that he can stay on the perch is to wrap his penis around the perch. So he gets a parrot home, and he finds out the parrot is very, very intelligent. He says, "You know, maybe you can keep an eye on my wife. I suspect she's cheating on me." He said, "Sure, I can do that." So he no sooner leaves, and the boyfriend comes up, and they go at it, and they get naked. And then the husband comes home, and he says, "So tell me what happened." He says, "You were right. You no sooner out the door, and the boyfriend came up, and they're doing their thing, and they got naked." And he goes, "Yeah, and then what happened?" He goes, "I don't know. I got a hard on. I fell off the perch." 3 dogs are in a veterinarian, and they're talking to each other. And the one dog said, you know, I'm here because I'm a very bad dog. I chew everything. I chewed my owner's shoes. I chewed the rug. I'm very bad, and my owner's going to put me down. So they said, oh, that's too bad. So then the second one, they said, what about you? And he says, yeah, I'm a bad dog, too. I dig into everything. I dug a hole in the carpet. I dug a hole in the yard. My owner wants me to put me down. So they look at the third one. He said, what about you? He says, yeah, I'm a bad dog, too. My owner bent over, and I took advantage of her. So they said, oh, so your owner's going to put you down? He said, no, I'm here to get my nails clipped. So there's oil everywhere. There's oil in Texas, there's oil in Mexico, there's oil in New Mexico, there's oil in the Middle East, there's oil in Alaska. But the problem is the dipsticks are in Washington. Did you hear about the unhappy snake? He was so unhappy he didn't even have a pit to hiss in. Well, Larry, I guess I'm going to tell this joke after all. There was an ant crossing the railroad track, and the train ran over his head. And the train went over his ass, so he turned his head to see what happened. And the moral of the story is, never lose your head over a piece of ass. Thank you.